What's going on, you guys? I'm going to talk about some kind of key things about really efficiently working your triceps, not just on a total gym and why this machine actually does work so well at targeting this area, but just in general overall. I'll talk about what I think is the #1 error that I see people do, inside and out of the gym with regards to actually really efficiently working and stressing this area back here behind your arms, the triceps. And as always, if you guys do like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. I'll put some links in the description box for anything I'll be talking about in this video. With regards to the triceps, I always find this to be a really specific area of concern for a lot of people, especially when it comes to like summertime or like weddings where you're putting on bathing suits, for both men and women. But men tend to typically, when it concerns the arms, they're more concerned about their biceps. Women typically usually always concerned with their arms, but they'll say more in general it's really behind the arms or the triceps that they're really concerned with. They kind of want to tone this area up. Women typically hold a little more body fat, so yes, there's a genetic difference there where it tends to kind of store back here, and they get the basic idea of like, yes, you need to do more tricep exercises, but I often find that this is one of those exercises or one of those body parts that I think really kind of gets neglected and really worked efficiently when you kind of look at what most people do to work their triceps. To this day, whenever I work with trainers and students and we talk about these things I'm going to talk about in this video with regards specifically to triceps, a lot of people can kind of grasp what they're seeing visually, but when you actually kind of go to the weight room and start doing some of the exercises, you find that people kind of revert right back to kind of their old habits. Now, the biggest problem that I kind of notice people have really relates back to one, range of motion, and also kind of getting into an advantageous position and or finding an exercise that really does what I'm trying to allude to here. And so what I'm really talking about is people get in this position, maybe it's a tricep press down, and they kind of grasp the handles. One, they might not even be starting off with some tension, which is a whole nother problem. You want to already have some tension and the triceps already essentially loaded. But people start kind of working essentially this range of motion, where they're working almost at 90 degrees and finishing off straight. And yes, that's going to work your triceps. There's maybe a time and place for kind of doing these partial reps, but that's exactly what you're doing, is basically partial repetitions. Versus ideally thinking about really the elbows can flex about this much. Even at this position, we're really maximizing this full range of motion. So what I'm trying to get at is trying to find exercises and positions that when you set up, first your posture is kind of pulled back. So even at this position, when I'm already kind of starting, my triceps kind of have this good line of action with the machine. A lot of this does have to do with kind of the machine, and I'll talk about why the total gym already kind of sets you up for success with some of the things I'm talking about. But once you kind of have your posture kind of pulled back, your elbows are locked in at your sides, triceps, and just like biceps, it's a single joint exercise to really maximize that. And so yes, the triceps do work in conjunction a lot of times with like the lats and the shoulder as we're doing like throwing motions, or if we're doing like a lat pull down, or even when you ever do like a tricep extension, people have a tendency to kind of turn it into like a multi-joint exercise in the sense that your shoulder and your elbow moving at the same time. When ideally, if we're really trying to target and just work specifically the triceps, really want to kind of lock that shoulder in place as much as we can and just isolate the elbows. And then in that position, you'll actually feel it a lot more in your triceps. And I won't give any specific highlights, but I've even seen this on like total gym videos as well, where you see people kind of doing a tricep exercise and you see a lot of movement in the shoulders and not a whole lot of flexion and extension at the elbow. Now, what's great about a total gym or a sliding bench trainer for some specific exercises, because there are some exercises I think don't work out too well for triceps, which is getting to my point where if you feel like you aren't really getting this full range of motion, you're not fully isolating the triceps, I would kind of disregard that exercise and go into something else. But what is great about a total gym, let's say I'm doing like the face down or prone tricep extension laying on the bench, you're already kind of setting yourself up where you're not really going to be cheating too much. Your body's essentially kind of locked in that position. But also, once you kind of start with your elbows kind of at the side and you're kind of thinking more or less with the elbows not going to be moving past the torso, at this start position, you have a great line of action or line of tension going on the tricep. If I'm ever doing like a cable tricep press down at the gym, I typically, instead of standing straight up doing a tricep extension, I'll kind of stick my body back, and this gives us nice kind of tension on the triceps, even at this extreme flex position, so that even before we start this exercise, we already feel the triceps essentially nice and bound up and ready to go. So some of my staple total gym exercises that I feel like work really, really well and sets you up in this great advantageous position, not just for working that range of motion, but also for isolating the triceps, would be that kind of prone tricep extension, the supine tricep extension as well, but I'm really trying to avoid kind of turning this into like a lat pull down and tricep extension. Certainly could do that, but again, that position feels really good. Even when I get on the kneeling position, I kind of kneel and kind of forward lean into that position. Also, I really maximize that range of motion and tension in that triceps throughout that range of motion. The tricep dip bars are also great on the total gym, but as you guys can see, given the nature of the exercise, there is a little bit more multi-joint action kind of going on there. In order to kind of really flex the elbows, I have to kind of extend my shoulders, so there is some natural kind of multi-joint stuff incorporated in that. there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But again, if you're really trying to focus and isolate the triceps and build the triceps, try and find unique positions and exercise that really maximize this and disregard that other stuff that really might be not as effective. So in the Total Gym, yeah, you could do things like overhead tricep extensions. You could do some kind of like modified kind of kickbacks. But again, the problem is still the same. You're basically essentially working about half that range of motion in the triceps and also losing kind of that good line of action. So if I'm doing an overhead tricep extension like this, yes, it feels good. If I kind of lean a little far forward into it, that'd feel even better, but 9 times out of 10, I don't really maximize that elbow flexion. And if I do, sometimes it can feel kind of awkward on the shoulder and does kind of more vulnerable, not so advantageous position. So regardless of whatever modality you guys are gonna be using, here's some general tips if you guys do wanna build and isolate these triceps and really build them up for whatever goal you guys might have. Keeping in mind all the things I said, first primarily would be basically trying to hit the triceps at least twice a week, allowing at least 48 hours between the body part. This is a smaller body part. Yes, it's involved in some other multi-joint exercises like any kind of push-related exercise. So you could maybe even get by with doing it 3 times a week if you wanted to, but definitely shooting for at least 2 times a week of working this muscle group. Then find those 1 to 3 exercises that work for you. It could be a lot more than that, but just find an arsenal of exercises that really work and hit on all the cylinders I was discussing in this video. Choose, like I said, 1 to 3 exercises, incorporate them maybe for like 3 sets. The rep range, like I've said a lot of times this channel, is kind of up to you. Whatever range of motion, I would say that more or less gets you to kind of feel like you're really stressing and tensing those muscles. For me, it's somewhere around like maybe that 10, 15, even 20 sometimes, but generally it's in like that moderate to higher rep range. And finally, this kind of goes without saying, but most importantly is do these things consistently. Oftentimes what I find people do is they find some tricep exercises, they'll try them a little bit, they kind of like pepper them in certain workouts. Again, the big concern is they're kind of peppering in ones that aren't as effective or efficient, but basically keep these things up, keep all these principles in mind, but do them very consistently over a period of time. And I pretty much guarantee you're gonna see a lot better results than you ever have in your triceps if you were never implementing these things. And starting at the gym, you got a whole variety of ways to kind of stress the triceps. I always found that machines tend to work a little bit better than free weights because you can find those good line of actions and you can work a nice fluid, full range of motion in a really advantageous way. So the Total Gym works perfectly for that if you're training at home. I find my resistance bands also work really well. It can give me that nice solid tension throughout a given range of motion. I personally rarely do a whole lot of like free weight stuff to work the triceps, even arms in general, just because I feel like the triceps work a lot better on kind of machine pulley-like things or something that kind of mimics kind of like a press down action like you would find with some resistance bands. But that's really it, guys. Hopefully you found this stuff beneficial and helpful. Any questions, comments, feedback on this or future videos or body parts you guys do want to see, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video.